You know, while it may not show with my video output, I've been playing a lot of RPGs lately. I've had to work on the Crystal Chronicles retrospective videos, I replayed all of the Super NES Final Fantasy games while I was at it, Strangers of Paradise, Dragon Quest 1, 2, 4, experienced multiple versions of most Ys games and FF8 for the first time, learned I fucking hate the Saga series, got halfway through Lunar on Sega CD before I lost my save file, so I'll need to start over later, and now I'm trying to back-to-back Final Fantasy 16 and 7 Rebirth. So I think today, I'll take a break and go to a platformer. However, I need a normal one starring a regular old boy. Oh shit, I've already turned the game on. If you follow along with the indie game scene, especially with 2D action platformers, you may have seen Berserk Boy. The creator and lead developer Zu Etisham has worked on the game for a long time, with their site linking back to demo videos in 2020. With how long they've spent on it and how few other staff members worked on it, it's clearly a passion project on their end. If we're talking indie, this is about as independent as a team can get. I'd seen Berserk Boy here and there for a while, though usually it was during times when the game was so far from release, I curbed my excitement. However, once that final trailer came out, I knew for sure I'd eventually get to it. I was pretty busy when it came out with the first Crystal Chronicles video, which put me into my RPG high, so I didn't move it to the front of my list or anything. However, like a week after the final trailer, a representative for the game emailed me a review code. So we back and forthed a bit since I was still in Vietnam and couldn't cover it soon, and now here I am with a review code for the game, which I'll mention for transparency so y'all know I didn't pay for it. Though I don't see that impacting my opinion. I put in well over 15 hours of playtime in one run, which for a Mega Man-like is quite a lot. And even now I'm thinking about ways to go through it faster, but we'll get to that in time. For now, I'll just say thanks to Ryan, Zu, and the rest of the Berserk Boy team for letting me try the game out before release, even if I only got through World 1 at that time. Real quick, let's go over Berserk Boy's setup. In the year 20XX, you play as Kay, a recent graduate of one of those things, with his friend Dizzy. Today marks their first day on the job working for the Resistance, an organization fighting the dark forces and any other evils that need to be resisted from. Today, Kay and Dizzy pick up readings of a Berserk Orb, a set of 5 orbs that previously helped the Resistance in their plight before they vanished for the following decades. So Dizzy lets the Resistance know where to look, Kay goes through a tutorial, meets his helper bird character named Fiore, confronts the main evil scientist Genos, who has an obsession with the Berserk Orbs, Dizzy gets kidnapped, and finally the electric Berserk Orb fuses with Kay, which, with one magic shout, turns him into Berserk Boy. From here, you all can guess the story. Save Dizzy, which you actually do early on, find the other Berserk Orbs, which in a Mega Man ZX fashion henshin you into other unique suits, rescue any civilians you find, and stop Genos' evil plan, whatever it might actually be. Besides revelations at the tail end that changes little, the story and character motivations stay the same from the start to the end. BB's very much a gameplay first type of experience, and so the story is on the utilitarian side. Literally, the most dialogue you'll find is when walking around the home base to talk to everyone, and for what it's doing, that's fine. There's just enough story and dialogue to get me liking the characters. So in terms of echoing that classic platformer feeling, especially around the GBA and DS era, it's got that down. And since there's not really much of a way to carefully say what's good and why for what we're given, I'm just gonna gush about what I liked in the story before getting all analytical about gameplay. So first off, when you're not in a stage, you have this home base you go back to. You walk around, talk to Resistance members and rescued civilians, get some upgrades. It's exactly like the base in Mega Man 0, 2, and 3 or ZX1. Though here, all of the NPCs are in full comedy mode. Outside of that, I found the relationship between Kay and the other main cast members enjoyable enough. Kay's not a super mega gung-ho protagonist, but he's still a young guy with a strong sense of justice, so he's ready to help however he can, which is an aspect about him shown the most through his true role in the Resistance. Because Kay wasn't actually supposed to be some kind of soldier or anything. No, he's actually called a teleporter, a Resistance member who's just supposed to save civilians by teleporting them home. An aspect of him baked into the gameplay by rescuing civilians, because to Kay, the most important thing during any war is keeping civilians safe. It also made his relationship with Fiore feel a bit more unique to me. Fiore is kinda like the wise mentor type character, besides being a regular ass bird. And usually when they have the young hero and the old guy mentoring, they do the whole, you youngins are not with the times kind of deal, and I get a little sick of that sometimes. But here they just meet up, they have mutual respect, they get to work on playing the fucking platformer, which they kinda need to get around to when they've got 16 stages plus bonus levels to make it through. So when it comes to basic gameplay, this is the real part where I had some worries back during the trailer days. Mega Man-like or inspired games aren't quite as exclusive as they used to be. Even my channel is partially built on me looking at a Mega Man-like game, and I'd imagine that's part of why they thought to ask me to look at it. And thankfully, I can say the Berserk Boy sets itself apart pretty well, though mainly once you beat the game the first time, and we'll get there in a minute. So Berserk Boy doesn't go for the traditional pick any stage Mega Man progression system. It's a linear stage 1, 2, 3 system like in Mario. There's 5 areas with 3 main stages and 3 bonus stages each, plus the last boss of the first 4 areas all grant you a new Berserk Orb and transformation, which, unlike Mega Man, means that they could design every stage with assurance that you have a given ability. So for example, stage 4-1 has this section that requires you to hover around in the air to avoid walls of spikes, a hazard they could only place down because you'd possess the soaring wind orb by this point. Then there's area 5, which has these walls strewn about that require the final orb to open them, both as a hard check to make sure you start testing the new form, and a call on the player to backtrack to old stages and look for secret paths these doors locked, but I think that's getting a little ahead of myself. When it comes to K's starting moveset, now, the easy comparison everyone knows is that it's a Mega Man X type of control scheme. You dash, you jump, and if you got different attacks and secondary actions depending on which of the 5 orbs you have equipped. Now for the deeper cut comparison that at the very least my longtime viewers know, the initial electric Berserk Orb form is like a better version of Copen's moveset from X2. You attack by dashing into an enemy to lock on, direct a projectile towards anyone you've locked onto, and repeat the process. Though unlike X2, Berserk Boy lets you keep dashing after you hit something in the air, like Copen in the other games. It works about as well as Copen's. The 2 main differences I notice is that K doesn't float down with jets, meaning you need to make sure you have something to land on or dash into, and I kinda felt like the invincibility frames on K are more generous than on Copen. To be clear, I'm not frame by framing it, but that's kinda how I felt. And I'd say both of those 2 factors work well with the stage design of Berserk Boy. Vertically, it's normally a bit tighter than in Ix or Gunvolt 2. You have a good look at everything unless they mean to hide it. So I never found myself in a moment when I dashed into an enemy and suddenly thought, oh fuck, and frantically looked for where to catch myself. I could always see exactly where I needed to go, and I knew exactly how I fucked up if I did, which you might find yourself doing pretty often when you have the electric or the ninja form equipped. Both of them, while having different dashes, pretty commonly had moments when you needed to platform with your dash. Berserk Boy sets up a bunch of enemies and hazards above bottomless pits or spikes, which are not instant death, and you've got to dash into the enemy to maintain airtime until you reach the floor. Now, not many of them are super tough, especially since Berserk Boy is generous with lives if you even choose to have them turned on, but they can be a score killer if you take too long or fall once, so don't just scoff at them. I had a few really good stage runs that I got cocky with until I fell, which man, that felt like shit when I did it. Like, I'll say this, anytime I died in Berserk Boy, it felt like my fault. And I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I just feel even worse in a game when that happens. It's like, oh man, I just blew that one like a fucking idiot. Anyways, to quickly go over the other forms, get the Flame Orb, which doesn't work too well for platforming, but was always my go-to for enemy gauntlet rooms. Then there was the previously mentioned ninja form, which is mainly for platforming and hanging onto ledges, but you can also use it to get your combo multiplier up with fast, long-range attacks, the wind form that lets you fly, and the light form you use for revealing hidden platforms, opening gates, and completely decimating bosses. Like, man, the boss rush at the end was nothing with this form equipped. Replaying the stages became so much easier after I had this, which shockingly is a phrase I can say every time I received a new power-up. By far the best part of Berserk Boy is replaying stages after getting all the power-ups. For the first part of the game, when I just had the electric and flame orb, I honestly wasn't quite feeling it. It was fine, it's a platformer, I had my platforming transformation and my fighting form when I needed to fight, but I could really tell I didn't have the whole picture. Berserk Boy taunts you hardcore with the paths you can't go down yet. So sure, World 2 begins and now I can start to through dirt, but what's up with that shit up there? Trying to get close to it be dangerous because wall of electricity go meaning I had to give up till later. Here's the thing, every level of Berserk Boy has 5 special medals and a changing amount of hostages to rescue, so you do actually have reason to look everywhere. I'm not gonna come back with my new ability and find some bullshit like 20 points for this wooden turtle. There's something required for 100% completion in there. I don't wanna just leave it alone. Which is why eventually I just slapped myself and decided, okay, I'm gonna play every stage up until I get the final transformation. Then I'm gonna replay every stage I missed an item in, which meant almost all of them, to scour for secret passages, and then I'm gonna replay every stage I didn't get an S rank on, which when added together with the stages I missed something in, effectively got rid of the almost I said before. That second part really isn't a big problem though. Berserk Boy is super generous with S ranks as long as you don't die, fight almost every enemy, and get a high score combo at least a few times, you'll get the S rank. And even the score combo is pretty generous in Berserk Boy. It's purely based on how many hits you land within a short period of time, with the timer resetting after every hit. So really you just need to keep a full combo going on when you encounter an enemy rush section, and then you're probably cash money for the S rank. But if the check bounces, do another attempt, use the teleporters to go back, grind a few enemies, warp back to the end, and now you're probably cash money. I know for sure I did that on one stage, maybe two, but it's been a bit, I forgot which ones. It's actually kind of nice to play an easier to S rank game for once, especially when I've got Penny up next, and from what I've played so far, it's on the brutal side for that. Anyways, I do have one little complaint with S ranks that I kind of hope is fixed by the time this video even launches, and that's the lack of a restart button. From what I can tell, to get an S rank, you can't die. Or at the very least, I would play perfectly besides one death at the start and still get an A, so no reset got annoying for me. Because upon dying, I need to pause the game, go back to the base, sit through a loading screen, reselect my stage from the base, sit through another loading screen, and now I'm playing the next attempt. On the Switch version, it took about 30 to 45 seconds to go through that process, which wasn't a big deal on the longer stages if I died near the end. But once I started playing the bonus EX levels, that's where it got on my nerves. Every EX stage clocks in at about 1 minute each, and it's filled with traps that require quick reaction times to avoid, which I actually like a lot on principle. Each EX stage makes use of the transformation abilities to make you play as fast as possible, or trade between forms at the perfect moments. I had real fun figuring out the perfect strat for each room, but when there's no reset button, I became a bit less inclined to replay a single stage over and over again, because if I got to the end of a 1 minute long stage and died, then that means I need to wait 40 more seconds for another 1 minute try. Because of that, as soon as I had the S rank, I moved on to the next one, which admittedly is partially because I was recording footage, but the desire to keep trying was waning as I went on to the later EX stages. And I feel that that's for no fault of the actual level design or game mechanics. Like, I know it's a weird thing to harp on in such a short video, but it's because everything else about Berserk Boy is so polished. I don't want the game to be dragged down this much by something that was probably just a developer oversight. Like, the way that K moves, especially in the Berserk and Ninja forms, is immaculate. Going from enemy to hazard has such a good rhythm. It almost feels like a trampoline. Push yourself onto something to get pushed back or even forward. For example, you've got these cannon blocks that shoot you out. You can jump in right after hitting some enemies, get shot out, go to the next enemy, and likely still have your combo going since the rings you pick up maintain score. Even with the other forms, you can keep that flow so perfectly. Every time I'd get a new ability, I'd give it a feel and think, oh, this is the bad one. It doesn't move like the electric orb. I'm probably gonna use it for situational moments and nowhere else. And you know, that's kind of half true. I did use them for situational moments. However, those are baked into the stages so well that in the later half, I switched back and forth constantly. You can't just hammer away with one transformation. Every challenge, even within the same room, might require a different tool, which is a nice change of pace from the Mega Man ZX style that it's clearly taking inspiration from. In those, I always feel like I end up staying as one transformation as long as possible. Even if I'm at a situation where I know another form might work better, I try my best to stay as whoever I am, in part because I knew how to get through most situations with models ZX or HX, and because the form change animation took a few seconds. Well, in Berserk Boy, it's instant. With Berserk Boy going for the linear level approach, I think it works better with each stage requiring you to make use of what you've got, especially when you start going for 100%. So in terms of completion rewards, there really isn't one. You unlock an EX stage when you find every civilian in normal stages, and you need 2/3 of the medals to reach the final stage, but to my knowledge at least, nothing for doing absolutely everything. Despite that, Berserk Boy for me was one of those times where but just the act of reaching 100% was reward enough. Once you have all the orbs, you start to see a whole new side to some of these stages, especially the first two areas. It gave me the same sense of surprise when I first replayed a level of Sonic Colors to find Wisp returning to old stages. Only here, every Wisp is built into K's set. Like, the drill is exactly the same as the Drill Wisp, but instead of finding an item mid-stage, waiting for Sonic to do his little dance and then drilling, you can just dash into the dirt. And I'm sure that this Sonic Colors feel is probably something Zoo was aiming for. He got Lopes in on the music, so I know he's a Sonic fan. Though I guess that also brings me to one of the hard parts about Berserk Boy for me personally, as someone trying to make a video about it. It's like a ton of games I've played, but refined. I played it, had loads of fun, I'm watching my footage, which makes me want to replay it again, and I can't help but think how this is an amalgamation and refinement of games I've talked about before. I feel as though even during playtesting, they might have had times when they borrowed something else, changed what they didn't like, gave it a test in-game, and thought, oh, this isn't right, let's just change the rules on it entirely, to get the perfect answer that they ended with. For example, I mentioned how the ninja also has a dash move that works differently from the electric form. But what does that entail, really? Well, instead of bouncing off of the enemy, it goes straight through them while dealing damage. But that's not really where it stops, because you can dash right back through over and over again until you miss, which just feels cool. And it doesn't drain much of an enemy's HP, so you can use it to raise the combo counter higher than if you use the flame orb, which probably would have killed it. I can really envision someone sitting down to play test, getting annoyed at some wacky invincibility frames, and deciding that the ninja can just go back and forth until you fuck up. I love this mechanic so much, and the game is filled with cool things like that. Even the placement of the energy orbs is so well thought out. As long as I kept the stablest momentum possible, I never had to worry about my weapon charge running out mid-flight or mid-drill. And since those orbs help you keep the score meter running, that means you can get a higher number even if you're far from an enemy. Though I wouldn't recommend aiming for some kind of perfect score chain. Lots of stages have hard stop moments that'll kill your combo. But despite that, it's so easy to get K doing max damage against a boss, high combo on some enemies. It's just fun to be this busted. And I think that's another thing I liked about Berserk Boy right now. I've been playing so many RPGs lately that an easier action platformer game that's still high octane just hit right for me. First few stages, I could feel that my platformer skills were a little bit rusty, not too bad because, you know, I grew up on them, but I needed to warm up. I really don't have some grand way to end this video besides saying that I'm really happy with Berserk Boy. I feel like lately the indie platform scene is finally starting to have people around my age making games, so they're putting in all the stuff I'd like. Berserk Boy, Code Bunny, Penny's Big Breakaway, Gravity Circuit, it just all looks so good. Even right now, I'll be honest, right after I write this sentence, I'm gonna go play Berserk Boy more. Partially because I lost half my footage, but also because I just really want to now. It's really that addictive. So whether you get it now, wait for a sale, whatever, I recommend giving it a go. Oh, by the way, if this isn't patched out, every time I turn the Switch version back on, it remaps the Y button to up. If that's not fixed by the time this goes up, that should probably be on the next update list. Oh hey, one more thing. I turned the game back on after I recorded the initial audio to learn that there is a new Game Plus mode. I can say right now, this is how I'll probably be playing Berserk Boy going forward, because it's just so damn fun. Before finishing the editing on this video, I got through like half of a new Game Plus run before I decided, shit, I need to go make the video.